Okay, thank you everyone for taking some time with the Maryland State Arts Council this afternoon. This is our information session for special request grants. I'm Chad Buterbaugh, Deputy Director of MSAC, and I'll be facilitating today. We're on Google Meet. All the features, well, some of the features are listed here, and a few more are listed here. If anyone has questions about Google Meet, you may ask now and I'll do my best to answer. Otherwise, we'll plow on. As always, we'll begin with our grounding slides, the first of which is a land acknowledgement statement. We acknowledge the lands and waters now known as Maryland are the home of its first peoples, the Occohannock Indian Tribe, Assateague Peoples Tribe, Cedarville Band of Piscataway Indians, Chopticot Band of Indians, Lenape Tribe, Nanticoke Tribe, Nasuewash Band of Indians, the Piscataway Conoy Tribe, Piscataway Indian Nation, Pocomoke Indian Nation, Susquehannock Indians, Youghiogheny River Band of Shawnee, and tribes in the Chesapeake watershed who have seemingly vanished since the coming of colonialism. We acknowledge that this land is now home to other tribal peoples living here in diaspora. We acknowledge the forced removal of many from the lands and waterways that nurtured them as kin. We acknowledge the degradation that continues to be wrought on the land and waters in pursuit of resources. We acknowledge the right of the land and waterways to heal so that they can continue to provide food and medicine for all. We acknowledge that it is our collective obligation to pursue policies and practices that respect the land and waters so that our reciprocal relationship with them may be fully restored. You can learn more about our land acknowledgement statement as well as how to apply it in your own programming at our website, msac.org. Our equity and justice statement. The arts celebrate our state's diversity, connect our shared humanity, and transform individuals and communities. MSAC and its supporting collaborators are committed to advancing and modeling equity, diversity, accessibility, and inclusion in all aspects of our organizations and across communities of our state. MSAC and its grantees are committed to embracing equity and non-discrimination, regardless of race, religious creed, color, age, gender expression, sexual orientation, class, language, and/or ability. Our vision is to play an essential role ensuring every person has access to the transformative power of the arts. Our mission is to advance the arts in our state by providing leadership that champions creative expression, diverse programming, equitable access, lifelong learning, and the arts as a celebrated contributor to the quality of life for all the people of Maryland. In 2019, MSAC adopted a strategic plan, which is still in force. The 5 main pillars of this plan are to increase participation, provide intentional support, build capacity, leverage connections, and bolster Maryland arts. You can read the entire strategic plan on our website, again, msac.org. You can also see how to sign up for one of our new strategic planning processes, new virtual roundtable sessions, which will be occurring over the next several weeks. That's a chance for you to anonymously share your thoughts about MSAC, successes, challenges, and where priorities should be placed in the future. Information on how to do that is, again, on our website under the Ways to Get Involved section. In this meeting, we will ask you to observe these actions to ensure that we're all on the same page in our conversation. It'll be mostly me talking, but there will be chance for discussion later on. To celebrate being in this space with other creative people, engage with everyone's presence as a gift, acknowledge that together we know a lot, enter the conversation with curiosity and inquiry, share your idea and trust that it will be heard, use I statements, focus your language on the task at hand, hold one another accountable with care, apply the yes and rule, or I hear your idea and I'm going to add to it, and balance speaking and listening. What we're doing today is part of a full raft of professional development offered by MSAC throughout the year. We list everything on our Eventbrite page if you'd care to register for future events. which could include anything from topic-specific sessions helping those in the arts sector to informal meet and greets or thematically driven meet and greets called Coffee with the Council, program-specific conversations, sometimes in-person regional office hours where we come to your area and meet constituents where you live, and an annual convening called the Maryland Arts Summit, hosted in June and facilitated by Maryland Citizens for the Arts. If you have an idea for a professional development session, you can email it to this address, and you can sign up for our mailing list at the second link here. If you'd like to get involved with the Arts Council, there are a few ways to do so. We rely on you basically to do a lot of our work. Some of the most important work is panelist service, where members of the public are hired to evaluate applications. We do program revisions as well from time to time, where editors come in and recommend policy changes on how our program should be executed. And we keep a list of all of these public calls at the Ways to Get Involved section of our website. Again, right now, we've also got a list of strategic planning virtual roundtables available there, as well as as of about 10 minutes ago, a job opening. We're hiring a fiscal officer right now. Anyway, to serve as a panelist or an editor or a juror or a judge, you do so in Smart Simple, our online grants management system. Those who are selected receive training and support from our staff, and you are compensated for this work. You will not become wealthy, but you will be adequately compensated for the investment of your expertise. So those were the grounding slides, and we've actually just covered the first element of our agenda for today. So from here, we will be focusing on the special request program. I'll give you an overview of that program to start, and then we will walk through the application together, close out with a question and answer session, and then reflect on our conversation today before adjourning. It may or may not take through 5 o'clock, but we have the entire hour if we need it. Sounds good? Good enough. It's a small crowd today, so I would encourage you to ask questions as they come up for you. The special request program has grown from a somewhat long history of different approaches to using discretionary MSAC funding. Up until 2017, discretionary grants were given out to various organizations whose work aligned with the MSAC mission, but they were not connected to an application process. So in the interest of increasing transparency, in 2018, we introduced this idea of a special request program to serve as a sort of container for spending that discretionary funding. The initial phase of that program lasted for 3 years, and then we realized it was still a bit rough-hewn and could use some tightening up. So in 2022, we did a program revision where we seated a panel of editors who made policy recommendations to change the special request program into something that was better suited to the needs of the arts sector in Maryland. And that newly revised program premiered, I guess you could say, earlier this year. And we're still in it. This is our second go round with the newly revised program, and we're excited to fund some new and exciting projects in this upcoming round. So the main purpose of the special request program is to respond to the fact that oftentimes an arts organization has needs or plans or ideas that don't fit into its regular budget, but which still definitely align with MSAC's goals to advance the arts in our state. So we've kind of built the program, again, with public help to address these 3 types of projects. Special request funds support innovative projects that address stated constituent needs, pilot or one-time projects, and capacity building efforts. It has to fit, project proposal has to fit within one of these buckets. If it doesn't, it's not a good fit for special request. We have many other programs which might be helpful. So that's the basics. The funding range for special requests is $2,000 to $25,000, and it is based on the level of the grant is based on the request that the applicant makes. So if you conceive of a project that costs $17,022, then that's what you request in your application. You may notice that this top amount of $25,000 has gone down since last year quite a bit. The reason for that is that the special request program is not overly highly funded among our other offerings. So we want to be able to give out more grants. And so that's the rationale behind reducing the maximum grant amount. Last year, for example, I think we received about 75 applications and we were able to fund 7. Part of that was due to the higher funding maximum. So we have a modest amount of money attached to the special request program this year, and our grant cycle is right here in front of you. The program will open for applications tomorrow morning, and it will remain open through the end of November. We are seating an external panel to review application submissions, and as of now, we have only one planned cycle for special request. It could be that sometime after the first of the year, other money becomes available in the MSAC budget, which would allow us to offer another month. But as of now, there's no plan to do that. So I would say that if you're interested in the program, focus your efforts on this current cycle that will be opening tomorrow. Who is eligible to apply for special request funds? Maryland organizations in the arts. And the reason for that awkward phrasing is that we welcome applications from arts organizations who are doing arts work 100% of the time, as well as non-arts organizations that might be involved in the arts occasionally or have a dedicated arts program to help them out or to as some part of their regular programming. We are looking for organizations too that have 1 or more prior years of arts work and some experience. Organizations are eligible to receive only 1 special request grant per fiscal year. We encourage broad support. So if you are seeking special request funding, think about from MSAC, think about other organizations that might help you out to round out your budget. There are considerations for multi-year funding. So let's say that you're trying to seek support for a pilot project that you know is going to take you multiple years to undertake. You may seek funding for the first year of that project through special request. Assuming you get it, you are welcome to come back for as many as 2 more years of special request funding for a total of 3 years. Anything beyond 3 years, and we have to conclude that it's no longer a pilot at that stage. At that stage, it's part of your regular programming, and you should seek funding through a different MSAC program or from outside of MSAC. There are restrictions for applicants who are also receiving funding from the Grants for Organizations program. Basically, in that scenario, any funding that an organization receives through special request cannot be counted toward allowable income on a subsequent Grants for Organizations or GFO application. That's not going to apply to everyone, but it is an important factor to remember. There are no other such restrictions for organizations receiving funding through non-GFO programs like County Arts Development or Creativity, Folklife Network. No such restrictions there. Again, ask questions at any time. Hearing none, we will now walk through the application together. It's a moderately sized application, not too complicated, but also not exactly simple. It consists of 9 narrative prompts and 4 financial data prompts. And we will walk through it just as soon as we hear from Arnis Kita. Forgive me for mispronouncing, but please go ahead with a question if you have it. I believe you're on mute. There we
Good
go.
morning. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Hi. I was just wondering, like, what opportunities does your organization have for people that are like songwriters and they're in community-related work with children and they're trying to promote music programs and trying to promote their original content, but it's in the context of community-related children programs, pretty much, if you understand the question.
Quite a few, yeah. We have a section of our site, a heading called Opportunities, and if you roll over that heading, there's a link under it that reads For Artists, and if you click that link, you'll get a full list of all the MSAC programs that support independent artists. In particular, our arts and education program is probably going to be of interest to you if you're often working with kids. And the idea is that not everybody needs to be connected to an organization to receive MSAC funding. So do have a look there. And if you are interested in establishing a relationship with an organization, we can certainly chat offline about that. And that might be a way to avail yourself of special request funds if that's the route you'd like.
Absolutely. Definitely, because I have no connections, but I've been doing this for about 16 years. So I've relocated. I'm in a good area that promotes arts. So I'm trying to get as much connections that I have. Absolutely. I'm trying to build relationships, of course, networking and all that.
Well, welcome to Maryland.
God
Hope
bless.
you're finding it hospitable so far, and do feel free to reach out to me directly after this session, and
Thank
we
you.
can get you started.
Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome. You're very welcome. Paul Coyle, as a small organization, can we use special requests to obtain funds for renting our first gallery educational space for the arts? I would think so. I would think so. As long as this would not be, there would be a strategy, I think, in crafting a narrative to that end. First of all, you want to make it clear that you're not seeking funding for a capital project because special request does not fund capital costs. Another program will at MSAC, but not this program. And second would be to note that what's called the Arts Capital grant, and it's actually still being created, which is why I said it will provide funding probably after the start of the year. So do look that one up. Ryan Patterson would be the person to reach out to if you have questions there. But if you do end up wanting to apply through special request in November, you would do best to note that you don't necessarily have a physical space right now. And in order to better affect your mission as an organization, you feel as if this rental space is necessary. It's going to allow you to have X impact on Y community, go all the way through that and make it clear that basically you're not seeking operating expenses, but instead that you are piloting the idea of working as a physically located organization. And we can have a phone call to talk more narrative strategy if you like. But that's my quick advice. You're welcome, Paul. Jonah asks, I missed what you said about GFO grant recipients. Are we eligible for this grant? Yes, GFO grant recipients may apply for and receive special request funds, but the caveat is that if you receive special request funds, you may not include them as allowable income on your next GFO application. You're very welcome. All right, good. Feel like we're getting warmed up here. So let's go ahead and move through the application questions. Here's your first narrative prompt. It's a simple drop down where you'll answer the question of which category best describes your proposed project. Is it an innovative project addressing stated constituent needs? Is it a pilot project, or is it a capacity building effort? This is not a scored question, but it helps our panelists to understand what your intention is for this funding and how it will be used. I'll say a little bit more about each one of these buckets. Innovative projects addressing stated constituent needs. As anyone who works at an arts organization knows, you're doing your thing every year, executing your regular programming. But throughout that, you probably do have people who are engaging with your arts organization who are saying, I wish you did this. I wish you did that. It would be really helpful to have this service. It would be have such a great impact on our community if you did this thing. We understand that, and that's kind of part of the reason this program is here. So if you have a lot of constituents saying the same thing, then that's what this bucket is for, funding to support doing that thing. Pilot or one-time projects. This would be coming kind of more from, it could come from the public, but it could come from internal decision-making too, where you just want to try something out, see if it works, experiment a little bit, innovate a little bit with a new project, but you don't necessarily want to put your regular budget toward that because it might be a bit risky, or various reasons you might have for not wanting or being able to try it out based on your regular budget. So you can use special request funds to pilot something. Finally, capacity building efforts. This is the category where we get most of our requests in this program, and it can refer to anything that increases the long-term effectiveness or stability of your organization. So it's not necessarily going to be public facing. A lot of times it won't be. This would be an activity like hiring a consultant to come in and do board development with your board members, or hiring a consultant to do a needs assessment among your staff about what could need to change in your workplace. Hiring a strategic planning firm to help you with activities like those. Executive searches can be funded through capacity building. And then sometimes, like I say, it could be more public facing, where you could hire a research firm to work with your constituents to figure out whether you're delivering on your mission, or whether you're doing what you think you're doing as an arts organization. You know, sometimes there's a bit of a disconnect between those who are in the mix of the organization and those who are out in the public being served by it. So these are the buckets, and you have to choose one. You don't want to choose more than one or let your narrative drift between them. You have to choose one, I think, to have the most competitive application. So with that laid out, your first question is simply to describe the activities that will be supported with this funding. And the italicized text here, I won't read it, but for all of the remaining questions, the italicized text is going to show you what a panelist will see when they're evaluating the application. And this text is what equals an excellent answer. So this is your basic project description. This is not the place to talk about impact or effectiveness. This is simply the place to describe what the activities are going to be. Detail is a good thing. Next question, state the organization's mission and regular activities. Describe the constituencies served by the organization's regular activities. So this is a very big question, but give us an overview of what your organization is doing every year and in service to what missions, and tell us about who you know and in your area that is benefiting from your work, the more, let me underline this and bold it and italicize it, the more you can demonstrate a multi-directional positive relationship with your constituents, the more competitive your application is going to be. That's true of all of MSAC's grant programs. But I say it here just as a reminder. Next question. Describe how the proposed activities represent a departure from the organization's regular activities. This is a new question this year. Last year we had 8 narrative prompts. This year we have 9. This is the new one. We put this in here because the purpose of special requests is not to provide operating grants. It is to provide project support for short-term, one-time, or internal capacity building expenses. So the more an application looks like it's funding a regular operating expense, the less competitive it will be. So do pay attention to this question, to this prompt, and make sure that it is clearly following on the previous prompt where you are talking about your regular activities. Here's the regular stuff. And then in the next prompt, here's what's not regular. Here's why we need this current funding. Next, how will the proposed project provide a direct or indirect benefit to one or more groups in the organization's geographic area of service? So a lot of people come back with questions about what does direct mean and what does indirect mean. A direct benefit would be based on work your organization does to pilot a new initiative or to directly address stated constituent needs. Those first 2 buckets of special request. An indirect benefit is going to be more connected to the internal capacity building work, because you're not really directly serving the constituents there. You're doing things with your own staff and your own board to sharpen the saw, so to speak, so that you can do better work in the long term for the groups in your area. So that's all that means. This is not meant to be coded or tricky language, but this is your chance to talk about impact. Remember, I said when you're describing project activities, just to have it be descriptive. That's good earlier. Now is when you talk about impact. Next question, what factors make this an appropriate time to undertake the proposed project? What's happening in your town, city, county, area? What's happening among various groups that you serve? What's happening in the news, in the country, in the world that caused you to say, well, now's the time. This is why we need to do this right now. This is not an emergency grant. You know, I would say that our intention is not to provide stopgap funding in crisis type situations. But this question here is where you reflect a little bit on the bigger picture in which your proposed activities are going to be taking place. What is the timeline for the activities? Simple question, but don't give it an appropriate amount of attention. I would say that in last year's cycle of applications, there were many questions surrounding timeline answers that were not fully fleshed out. And if you don't have exact dates, that's fine. We don't expect you to, but give an estimation. You will not be held to dates that or timeframes that you put in your application that end up changing a little bit. So give this an adequate amount of attention is probably one of the more boring prompts to answer, but a good timeline is going to reflect well on your organization and it is going to definitely um, catch the positive attention to panelists. Paul asks, do the funds have to be allocated in that specific year? Good question. Yes. These grants that are opening up tomorrow are fiscal 24 grants, which means all of the funding would need to be spent by June 30th of next year. And if they're not, then they would need to be what we call obligated by June 30th, which means that they need to be budgeted essentially for particular expenditures. Encumbered is another word you'll often hear, in a way that you would not be able to spend those funds in any other way. And if that ends up being the situation for your organization, you can give us a call and we can work that out. Next question, what are the success indicators for the project? For example, will you know that you've done a good job if you reach a certain numerical threshold? If you're hearing anecdotes, testimonies, or other stories from the people you served, if your attendance goes up to a certain level, if you end up getting coverage in The Sun or Be More Art or any publication in your area, newspapers, magazines, sites, or in the case of capacity building, is your organizational efficiency gone up by some metric? This too is a question where it's like it's as if it's toward the end of the narrative section of the application, and some applicants are kind of running out of steam. I would advise you to not run out of steam and to make sure that you've really thought this through about what success looks like for your project and answer accordingly. I believe the next prompt is the final prompt. It is, yes. How will data for project success indicators be collected and evaluated? Who's in charge of doing this? How much time will they be allotted to do it? When will they be expected to do it? All the way throughout the project execution process, or they don't start their work until the project is over? Where will the gathered data go? How will it be stored? Who's going to be looking at it to see whether or not your organization hit its goals? This too is kind of a brainiac type question that it feels it could be easy to overlook it, but again, this last section, this last part of the narrative section of the application does deserve a lot of attention. And I say this not to be threatening or discouraging. I don't mean to be discouraging, but just based on last year's cycle of grants, these are the pitfalls that we noticed in the process. So those are the narrative questions. Any more comments, thoughts? All right, well, let's move on to financial. We have 4 prompts in the financial information section of the application. First is a simple fill-in answer. What is your organization's annual operating budget? That is a single number. You're not expected to upload a P&L or an audit or anything like that. You just enter the number in, and then you enter in the total estimated expense for the proposed activity. It could be $25,000, our grant maximum. It could be $125,000, and you're seeking support from other agencies. So just put the total number there, and then your grant amount request, which is again between $2,000 and $25,000. That you could do in about 30 seconds, these first 3 prompts. The 4th financial prompt is actually a chart that you open up, and it asks you to break down your budget in rough form into your estimated project expenditures between what you will use from any special request funding that you received versus what you will use from any other funds that you will raise, whether funds out of your regular budget, from a private philanthropic entity, from a county arts agency in Maryland. All of our county arts agencies are granting agencies. private donors, etc. And then those two elements add up into total project expenses at the bottom of your chart. Make sure the chart is filled out. This too is something that is, I guess, somewhat easy to miss. It's a blue button that says Special Request Expenditures Chart. Make sure you click on it, open up the pop-up chart, put all your data in there. Again, no uploads necessary of internal financial data from your organization. Okay. As with all of MSAC's grants, we also, in our application, will require basic info about your organization, point of contact, executive director, UEI number, all that stuff, contact info, the upload of a completed W-9 form, and a legally binding electronic signature. That's all pretty boilerplate for us. Yes, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
So I was just wondering, I know y'all cover and finance a lot of arts programs. So I was just wondering if someone was trying to start a martial art program, for instance, and is that something that y'all cover for people that are trying to, I guess if I heard the points like what the finances, what the program is gearing towards. Um, I just wonder if you're trying to create a martial art program, is confidence or anti-bullying? I mean, is that something that y'all invest in? If a program seeks to build people's confidence, mental health disorders from a young age, and those kind of things, like would y'all finance a program that someone's just trying to address those kind of things?
It's a good question. The part of the Arts Council that I would encourage you to check out is Maryland Traditions, which funds cultural traditions, cultural practices. It actually has funded one martial art in the past, which would be Brazilian capoeira. It has not funded, for example, martial arts from the Far East, but from East Asia, excuse me. Yes, I would check out the Maryland Traditions program. Outside of Maryland Traditions, that would be probably not in most cases, probably not.
Okay.
Unless, let's say, someone had a martial arts studio and as part of their confidence building curriculum, they wanted to introduce an artistic element of painting, drawing, dance for fitness, this kind of thing. That could potentially be fundable, but you'd want to discuss that with the relevant program director. Maryland Traditions, though, is the place where I'd recommend starting.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Well, that's it, really. We're at Q&A now, and I'd welcome any further comments or questions.
Hi, Chad.
Hi.
Hey, so I'm wondering if this would, like something like DEI trainings for partners and staff and board, and would that be something that could fit into this opportunity?
Certainly.
Okay, great.
Yeah, that's an easy one. Yes. And that would go under capacity building, most likely.
Awesome. Thanks.
From Paul, when does the Maryland Folklife Apprenticeship reopen? That's a great question. Typically, it opens around February, March. Ryan Coons would be the person to contact for exact dates. I know he keeps meticulous schedules. So he's at ryan.coons@maryland.gov. Coons, Koons. No problem. Another thing you could do as you're considering whether or not you want to take the time to apply is to look at the special request page of our website and download last year's grants awarded list. It basically just has the name of the grantee organization and the county in which they're located and nothing more. However, that should be enough for you to maybe do a quick Google search. And if you feel like you want to reach out and learn more, I'm sure that some of those grantees would be happy to talk to you about what got funded, how they approached the application process, and those strategies for success could be helpful to you. That's really true of any of our programs. The grants awarded lists I find to be very valuable resources, and not a lot of people seemingly don't tend to use them as such. So they're out there. Paul, go ahead.
Yeah, following up on what I asked earlier about the finding our first space for our 501c3, we had an
Yes.
opportunity to get an arts gallery in Baltimore County where the owner had a gallery in it and then said he'd keep it as a gallery if some other organization could move in it, but we couldn't get funded, and we fall below the threshold of the grants for organizations. I think it's 25,000 and up you need to have, or is it 50,000?
50.
Okay, we're about 25.
Okay.
So we're kind of in a really difficult spot where we're probably going to stay at 25 till we can get a space and run art education programs. So, could we use this to start that step? And that would
Sure.
kind of be like a pilot to see how we do with that.
Sure.
Can in that, if we did it for rent, can we also put computers to, we'd have to buy computers for teaching Photoshop and all that. Is that, or is that going to be considered operational equipment for the
Yeah,
other grant?
I would recommend focusing on the rental costs.
Okay.
The computers could go, but I think that they're just a little too close to capital expenses. They're sort of in a gray area between permanent and kind of consumable or disposable equipment, because they're not going to last forever, but they will be with you for a while.
Yeah, because the problem is the creativity for operational expenses. What do we buy? 2 computers? It's
Yeah.
not enough money to buy like a MacBook Pro if we want to train everybody on a Mac. I'm just trying to figure out a way to do it. But so if I wanted to talk to you a little more in depth, can I email you?
Oh yeah, we could set up a separate call, and if you have other team members that you wanted to bring with you, we could talk about things in more detail.
Okay, and we're very small. There's like 3 people, so that's why
Well, you're not the smallest organization by far. There
Okay.
are plenty of folks who are doing it on their own out there in the world. So don't worry about that part, and I'd be happy to talk. And I'll also say for the whole group that it's true that MSAC might not be able to fund any single project or organization in total, but that's almost never true. That one funder provides 100% of the funding for an organization. So consider, again, your county arts agencies. The Maryland Philanthropy Network keeps a registry of various private philanthropic organizations around the state. I find that their website is an interesting research tool. And so check out what other funding streams might be out there for you.
Okay, and the final thing is there's a hard deadline of November 30th on this.
Yes.
So I need to talk to you probably next week or earlier.
Yeah, or this
Okay.
week. We could find some time.
Okay, I'll send you an email. Thank you.
Sounds good. No problem. Our friends at Mayur. Mayur Dance. I see a hand. It could be that you're on mute. I'm not sure. I can't see your video.
Sorry, I was responding to you actually, and letting others know that MSAC did fund our 30th year anniversary last year, and a total of $50,000. And if anybody wants to know from us what it is that we did, they're most welcome to approach us. Just wanted to let you know that.
Thank you for that kind offer, and I would encourage folks to avail yourselves of that offer. Someone who's been through it before can often provide some great pointers. Paul is asking for a website. Put
Yes.
it in the chat. Great, thank you.
I'm sorry, I'm from the phone and I'm having trouble. It's mayurdance.org. MAYURDANCE, one word, .org. Yes, that's it.
Very good. These are good questions. Keep them coming. We have 10 minutes still. All right, well, hearing none, we'll move on to reflections. We do this at the end of most meetings as well, regarding whether this was a useful session for you, whether the format was good, whether there are other pieces. I see Paul's hand up again.
Yeah, this was very useful, and I did have another question. Can we, if we get approached by an individual artist who wants us to fiscally sponsor them, can we apply for this directly as well as serve as a fiscal sponsor? Or is that some kind of conflict of interest there?
There is, our conflicts of interest are based mostly on whether there would be, most likely not. Most likely it would be fine. And fiscal sponsorships are regular parts of our grant making, just as long as they are of a particular type of fiscal sponsorship, which is the one where the sponsoring organization takes full responsibility for any received grant funds and does not instead act as kind of a pass-through where all of the money goes into the accounts of the participating artist. So we need the model where the organization stays in charge and has fiscal responsibility. Most of our conflicts of interest would be involved with other types of things, like where there would be conflicting business interests or overlapping business interests between the state of Maryland and the applying organization. But that type of thing doesn't tend to happen at the applying organization level. So again, something we can chat more about in our meeting. Great, thanks, Paul. Other reflections. Did you wish this were all written down in a document? Did you wish we did it in person? Anything you care to reflect on? We just do most of these things virtually these days because it seems like it's easier to reach folks. Yeah, I haven't heard a name. I'm sorry, but Music Stick Arnis Kita.
Yeah, my name is Kaida.
Kaida, excuse me.
No, it's fine. It's fine. Somebody had their hand up. I think it was Mayor or something. She still has her hand up.
Mayor Dance. Is that an old hand or is that a new question?
That's an old hand.
Old hand, okay.
Sorry.
Well, I guess I just wanted to reflect. My personal experience. I know that I'm actually from Maryland. I lived in Maryland for a long time. I mean, all my life. But the problem was I was not in a very supportive environment. So I did not have other people that wanted to write songs, other people that wanted to perform, they wanted to do other things. So the problem was that it wasn't conducive. The environment really wasn't conducive. So I had to relocate to a whole nother county. So I know, but I wanted to reflect on the fact that I did receive a check from Maryland State Art Council before. And I just remember that being a very positive and inspiring time. And I see y'all post a lot of different art here in Wheaton, because that's where I'm located. And you have a lot of events here in Wheaton. So I mean, just to reflect, I think you guys are doing a great job. I just would like more, I think, information on like just, I guess, starting the very, you know what I'm saying? If you don't have an organization or if you don't have really much, like where do you start from ground zero, you know, in terms of that? Also, do you have to pay dues in order to get better grants, or are you guys offering grants? Is there different levels of offering grants or anything like that?
Thanks, Kaida, and appreciate the story. We are not a membership organization. We are open to the public in the same way that like a pool is open to the public in the summertime, and the money's coming from the same place. We're primarily taxpayer funded, so we're just kind of redistributing those state dollars that come out of tax revenue, and we're re, what do you want to call it? Forming them into grants and giving those out. Starting from ground zero. Yeah, that's a comment we sometimes hear. Our Grants for Artists program might be an interesting option for you. That's going to open later maybe later this year, no later than January. Anyway, that provides living and working expenses for Maryland independent artists. We also have, as I mentioned, professional development offerings where occasionally, like, we'll bring in lawyers, volunteer lawyers, to answer legal questions that artists might be having. Questions about taxation and estate planning. We're looking toward doing a series on entrepreneurship maybe at some point next year. But kind of, if you're in Wheaton and you go to our professional development offerings page on Eventbrite, you'll see that we're actually having a regional office hours in Silver Spring on November 16th. So I'd encourage you to come out to that if you're inclined and if you have the time. Meet a few of us and talk to some other program directors about how you might get started.
Absolutely. Thank you very much.
Sure thing.
Also, what is the criteria for being an artist in Maryland? How do I meet the criteria? What do y'all qualify as actually being a legitimate artist?
Well, we definitely don't evaluate legitimacy, really. But different programs have different eligibilities. I would say that as long as you're 18 or older, you're not enrolled in a degree granting program, education program, and you're making creative work of some kind, that counts, you know. So we fund pretty widely, from your more familiar genres in theater, visual art, song, opera, all the way over to, like in the Maryland Traditions program, certain cultural martial arts or food traditions or shipbuilding, things like this. We're really just looking for that creative element in people's activities. Yeah.
Thank you.
Sure. If you have additional reflections, you can send them to our general email address, and all that remains is to offer gratitude for your presence today. It was a nice conversation, a small group. You can join our mailing list at this QR or at the link, and I hope you all feel well informed about special request. Paul will chat more. If anybody else wants to have a chat with me, you can reach out and we'll get some time on the calendar. Otherwise, that's the end. Thanks again for your time, and happy Halloween.
Thank you so much. And I would like to follow up with you.
Great. Looking forward to it.